It is currently 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, and I'm out here in the middle of Greeneville, Tennessee at the 40s Car Museum. Once there lived a creative soul just outside of Atlanta. He had a good job but never fit in. He had a big apartment, but it cost him a limb. So one day he packed it all up and threw it into storage, hit the open road, and became a traveling caricaturist. Now he lives in a camper and travels all the time. He works at fairs and festivals. For the price of a single click, you can join the ride. Also, don't forget to ring that bell icon. While antique cars are definitely not the type of material that I look for very much on this channel, I did do one other video. It was called Cranky's Car Museum in Galax, Virginia, and that turned out to be a ton of fun. And it looks like this one, being as it's as far back as the 40s, will probably be just as much fun. So I'm gonna get off of my normal beaten path and do the antique car thing today. So let's go on in, see what we can learn. The 1936 Ford Sprint, what looks like a large Cabbage Patch baby driving it. Built in 1936, but according to this plaque, it raced from the 50s to the early 70s, which is a good long run for a racing car. These things, during this time, they got smashed up quite a bit. The 1959 Nash Metro. A lot of you are probably familiar with the Nash Rambler comedic song, but this was the Nash Metro. I'm just going to say the word, very sexy. This was a very sexy car. The 1972 Rolls-Royce. And somebody has left a copy of the Ya Sisterhood on the hood here, because the movie made with Sandra Bullock. I'm not sure who the other actors are, but I know who she is. She's one of my favorites. I've seen a good bit of this movie. I haven't seen it all the way to the end. But here's that famous scene in the movie when one of the sisters blocks the entire road with her yellow 1972 Rolls-Royce. Just like this one here. I really like the way these old muscle cars looked, where they put a bunch of pipes on the side. I don't know how necessary these pipes were, but they certainly looked cool. I think this is why Rat Fink liked to use this type of car in his drawings so much. And this one is the 1981 Berlin Coupe, boasting 350 horsepower with a V8 engine. Now this one is fascinating, and it looks like a horse-drawn carriage without the horses. I think that's why they called them the horseless carriage. But horse carriages is what they knew back then, so when they started, making vehicles with a combustion motor, it just looked like a horse-drawn carriage with no horses. This one is the 1901 Oldsmobile. And it boasted a 4-stroke motor. That just means that the gas and the oil were mixed together. There was no oil reservoir, separate from the gas reservoir. Only 5 horsepower, a single-cylinder motor with only 2 gears, high and low, and a third one, I guess you could say, for reverse. It had a top speed of 20 miles an hour and only held a 1.5 gallons of gas at a time. Imagine it couldn't go very far. And I had imagined these little tires probably couldn't go probably less than 100 miles before you had to change those tires again. Now, the way that it was steered, you can kind of see the pitman arm down here. and the steering wheel is going up. For some reason, they've got it underneath this mannequin's dress, but the steering wheel is down there. Odd position, really. If this was a guy driving it, you could say that this horseless carriage was driving him nuts, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, you've got other levers and stuff here. This vehicle right here was made, this was a gas tanker. This was made for hauling gas to the gas stations. It was from, let's see, beginning in 1903 until 1929, this type of vehicle was used. But that's not the only gas tanker in this museum. There's also this one right here. This one looks even more, well, actually it was horse-powered. It was actually towed by horses with a big giant tank of gasoline on it. And big white letters on the back saying, "No smoking." Yeah, no kidding. This one right here, I think this one gets my vote as the coolest vehicle in this entire museum. This thing looks downright steampunk. Look at all the brass studs, or maybe copper. And you've got the big searchlight right here. Man, it looks like it's right from a Jules Verne novel. So cool. This one was the 1915 Van Blerick Speedster. It boasted 200 plus horsepower, 17 liters in 6 cylinders, and a top speed of over 100 miles an hour for 1915. That was unheard of. Just look at the style in that thing. And look at that, there's a giant chain drive going to the back tires right there. You could change, I guess this was for changing gears, by reaching your arm out the side of the car and changing the gears on the side there. Little windows in the side of the hood so that you could just show off the muscle of those 6 cylinders. And this front scoop looks like the front of a train, doesn't it? Wow. Yeah, that one definitely gets my vote. But right next to it is another car built 50 years later. This one's called the Excalibur. Smaller, but this one has 300 horsepower. True muscle car. Right there. Whereas this one only had 200 horsepower. And it was a tank compared to the Excalibur. There's the 1961 Willys Jeep right here. This one was only 60 horsepower, 3-speed. This thing is a style that has just stuck with the Jeep company up until now. You look at the front end of a Jeep, and it still looks like this. That style of the grille, the round headlights, even the spring-loaded latches to hold the hood down. Still there. People just fell in love with this style. And for good reason. The 1975 Bricklin. 1975 Bricklin with a Ford V8 motor in it. Those gull-wing doors were definitely a 70s thing. So a lot of people tend to think that only the DeLorean, like on Back to the Future, had the gull-wing doors, but apparently they did not. They did not. Also the Bricklin. But speaking of the DeLorean from Back to the Future, they have one here. And this one was made in 1981. The DeLorean had a V6 engine and had a top speed of 140 miles an hour. This one does not have the Back to the Future time machine props added to it. This is just a DeLorean with the aluminum cover around it, and of course parts of the movie playing on loop. Alright, last one we're going to look at, the 1957 Chevrolet, two-door, with a V8 motor. You don't get cars that pale green anymore. That's some style right there. Alright, guys, that is going to do it. That is the end of the Car Museum tour. If you guys have enjoyed this, please don't hesitate to indicate so by hitting that thumbs up like button. Leave something down in the comments section. Subscribe. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to ring the bell icon so you'll get notifications of all my future updates. And I really appreciate all the views, and I will see you again in the next one.